Welcome back, everybody, to Gringos Liberados for a very special episode. My name is Trajan. I'm joined by 4x4, and we have a wonderful guest with us today. Peter Dunn is joining us. The original Gringo has joined us to discuss, to do a bit of Worlds preview, discuss this year of LTA South now morphing back into the CBLOL. Welcome, Peter. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Looking forward to some fun discrossings, given the news last week.
Yeah, given everything that keeps happening, It does seem like the rate of news just keeps increasing through the end of this year. And a quick disclaimer to anyone who happens to be watching us, pay no attention to my bloodshot right eye. It's not because I was watching Twitter replies of LCS versus CBLOL Twitter drama. It is in fact just a small medical issue. I'm fine. Please don't worry about it. Okay, with that out the way, let's get straight into the regional stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the LTA South, about Brazil, about everything that has transpired over the last year. And the most recent thing that's happened is Isurus, somewhat against all the odds, has retained, I believe, their spot in the league. And we were going all the way from split 1, 2, and 3. We were kind of getting more and more worried, I'll be honest, as they went on, as to whether that was going to happen. But ultimately, they did look super good. Zamado continued to put on big numbers for them. Jose was Joseing around, and Keen, especially coming in the mid lane, looked like exactly what they need. So, 404, I'll come to you first here. I guess it's the second time we've had just a mid laner chucked into a roster that just kind of fixes everything in the last split.
Yeah, I mean, and I think one of the maybe good things, I guess Riot hasn't determined how the whole resident slot works, right? Like the Griffin problem, TM, if you will, right? Of how he and Seos go into the north.
Going to be the same.
Exactly. If you're asking me what I think will happen, I bet they phase it out, but they'll give a 1-year buffer window or something. They'll say hey, for 2026, it's fine, because there are a lot of kind of 2-year projects, if you will, in League of Legends. So they'll be look, we're not going to punish you for this, but maybe by 2027, figure that out. But Isurus were kind of the benefactors of this, because as Summit bounces from team to team to team to team to team to team, getting himself in all sorts of sticky situations,
problems, pickles,
all sorts of, Summit. The spotlight seems to find Summit, man, and that's no disrespect on him. Look, he's good enough for the level of what he's required to do, right? He came into Brazil split 1, and say what you want about the off the rift stuff, he was a demon on the rift. He did very well for.
That was a step up from what Birdle was offering.
Yeah,
it seemed.
I forgot that Birdle was on this team. I'm going to be honest with you. You said Birdle, and I was like, was he on an LTA North team when we played cross-con? Oh, no, he was actually the Isurus top laner. But more than anything, I'm happy that Jose Deodo will still have a spot in the LTA or in the CBLOL. But if we're going to be real here, even if Isurus got relegated, I'd have a hard time believing that someone wouldn't sign Jose Deodo.
No, bro, he'd be on LTA, somewhere in LTA North or South Tier 1, I think. I think Payne would be perhaps knocking on the door. Anybody was well, this guy's just floating in the wind, somebody's gonna get this. Quick question while we're here, Peter Dunn, did you see much of split 1 about when Isurus was hitting first? And
yeah
do you think Birdle was hard done by in that split, or do you think he was actually a problem? Because it was somewhat hard to tell at times.
So I think he was fine in split 1. I mean, to be honest, that team was just mid jungle. It was literally just mid jungle trying to do things. Bot lane trying not to feed too much, and top lane just doing his job. But from what I heard, the rumor is Birdle, after they won the championship, didn't really try as hard anymore in the offseason, and he made he kind of put the team in a position where he dared them to fire them, and then they were well, I mean, we're going to fire you, right?
It was it's an off the rift issue rather than on the rift issue.
Yeah, off the rift issues. Not by so the rumor, I don't have any information behind the scenes from Isurus, but the rumor is that he just wasn't playing solo queue anymore, and he just didn't give a shit.
I don't now,
obviously we haven't heard his side of the story.
Not come out and do all sorts of very cool mature things.
Yeah, and he was pretending to take English lessons and just was not.
Just not. Yeah. So okay, that's fine.
But obviously we haven't heard his side, right? This is the Isurus side.
It's true.
Yeah, it seems like even Isurus hadn't heard his side, because he wasn't talking to them or communicating at all. So who knows? But ultimately Summit did do a lot better for them at the time. Now, Isurus now because they're not going to keep Zamado. Zamado is going off to Lion, I believe, in the LCS next year. I believe it's on loan from them.
Is this a double lift to Team Liquid to rescue them in promotions situation?
So, because Lion in Split 2, I think they were the ones where everyone's going, okay, hang on, Sate, Henna, like, right, we're liking what we're seeing here. This is pretty good. And then I think we just kind of lost that momentum in Split 3, maybe. And I don't really know how Lion's Split ended because I wasn't paying as much attention to the lower ranks of LTA North. But I know that Zamado seems to be an interesting talent, and I've liked what we've seen from him, especially in this promotion relegation series. Doing some 9-1 Jace games and the like, which was sorely needed. So, props to the boy. And yeah, certainly Jose would be in the league in some form or another, and we'll see how Keen does. I think it's interesting that you said that in Split 1, Isurus was just kind of mid jungle merchants, because it kind of feels like a lot of the league is becoming mid jungle merchants at this point. Like Red, VKS, lesser Pain, but Pain looked worse, so maybe that's why, because they don't have a mid jungle merchant squad. But it seems like that we still have the massive AD carries, but now we're playing way more through mid jungle duo, and that seems to be like that has to succeed for the team to succeed, at least in our top echelon.
Oh, I'm not too sure about that. I think he'd have a bit more nuance to the playstyle. I think Red definitely, like everything that happens in Red Cannons is happening around mid lane. Like Kaze that's just how Kaze plays the game, right? You can either come and help him, or you can like, but he's going in, right? So I would agree for that. I think Keed to me are more about like jungle support. I mean, I think Miru's a little bit detached. I mean, they can play through mid, but they're getting priority through bot. They're like roaming with support. They're like controlling the river. They're not really forcing around mid in the same way that you'd have Red forcing around mid for the mid laner, and then Furia forcing around jungle with mid lane stacking. But yeah, no, I definitely agree that we're coming into a world which is more mid jungle focused. I think it's pretty bad for Pain that if the meta continues going this way. Good for Loud, actually. This is the interesting team for this is Loud with Tin, especially in the last like 18 months of his career, we're not doing that much. He was just like being there. But with bringing in Griffin and Griffin for Croc and what's his name?
Jool.
Green guy, not so good for me. What's his name? I don't know. I'm kidding, obviously, but obviously with the mid jungle changes, they play a lot more for jungle as well, which has been very, very interesting. I agree that the meta is going in this way.
Do you feel good, or how do you feel about Jool, the mid for Loud? Because that one, I think Romer came in, and certainly RMC, our resident Pinzeche, is pretty mad about that after the course of looking at the year's report card, isn't happy with it. And Jool, the question is it going to be the same story? Is it going to be another lackluster sort of Korean import that never can get to the heights that Loud, especially now, with the energy they have, with what Griffin's doing, with Robo back on form, like there's a lot
with what Croc
of potential.
Did. I mean, like with what Croc and Root did, because like for every Korean that comes into Brazil and knocks everyone's socks off, there's who was the guy who was on Los Grandes and just decided to quit after 2 weeks.
Trick.
Trick, exactly, right. Yeah. There's for every Root and Croc, there's a Trick, right? But Loud had Root and Croc at the peak of their powers were like, I mean, it was like
best Korean imports
Peter
ever done.
No, like literally, like I mean, Peter, you might remember this from like I forget if it was 2013 or 2014, but I think it was Cade that had like the two first Koreans that came down to Brazil, and they just like demolished the rest of the region. I think it was 2014. But like it felt like they were hitting heights that hadn't been seen since then. Of just like, no, these two are clearly like maybe the two best players in the whole region.
Sure. But then people adapted afterwards, and then you had a long period where a lot of Brazilian talent was done, and then we had the I guess the Korean the Koreans coming in. But I would say that I think that the reason you had so many Koreans coming in is because native talent in Brazil started getting reasonably expensive to the point where it was almost cheaper to bring in like Koreans. But obviously you're not getting with respect, like you're not getting the S tier Korean prospects coming into Brazil. And I mean, this is one of the reasons why I've always been slightly against importing Koreans, because let's be clear, like where's a Korean going? They're going LCK first, maybe LPL, maybe LCP, or Japan back in the day or something. Europe, NA, like you're getting like the You have to hope that 7 different regions have fucked up their scouting
in
order to get the right guy. And I mean, I think with Root, I think he was very, very hard done by. I will say this. Croc is the type of guy who you're either going to love him or hate him. He's the type of guy that reminds you a lot of Malrang, like peak Malrang, not the Malrang that we saw when he came to Brazil, but the Malrang that won when he was on Rogue, like sacking everything. He's not the cerebral jungler, like the Inspired or like the Disarmus or something like this. So I was never the hugest Croc fan, but I definitely think Root was very, very hard done by, and good scouting by Loud to pick him up and see the opportunity, and that made them their generation, their winning generations.
Yeah, Croc gave you the 4 titles, but he also gave you forgot to buy jungle item on the world stage. Like you had to take all of Croc when you draft Croc on the team. So. Yes.
I remember there was a Rise game where Robo played Rise at Worlds.
Yep.
And I no longer remember that. I stripped that from my memory.
Dude, it was...
He didn't gang top into his Rise matchup, and it was rough.
So Jool. So the TCL import Jool, which seems like there's a risk of this also being like the TCL went from what is now an ERL into... Brazil have we found a diamond in the rough, or have we found a floating Korean in the Atlantic? Like what is the vibe here?
Okay, so I think because you mentioned Roma, I think it's worth starting a little bit with him first. Yeah. So I think Roma came into a very, very difficult situation where I think Dinkedo was like getting flamed like kind of unfairly. Like he was making mistakes, but he was doing like a lot of his mistakes that he was getting flamed for were not his mistake. Like some of the laning was on him, right? But there were times where in team fights, like Kuri just fucks up, and then like he's just literally just getting caught for no reason in the team fight. And then then Dinkedo comes and covers for him, and then he gets caught, and then the entire thing is a fight. But nobody flamed Kuri. Like everyone is flaming like Dinkedo, or like when Carrion messes up, like Dinkedo gets flamed. Like he was absorbing a lot, and I think that Roma was always coming into a difficult situation because he was coming in to a situation where the guy who was taking all the accountability for his teammates was no longer there, right? So, and sometimes having a lightning rod in your team is really valuable, right? Because it lets the other people play without stress, right? Obviously, it clearly impacted him in a very, very negative way. So I think the Roma thing was always going to be harder to make work. But you compare it with Jool. So first thing I say is that I think Loud have done. Loud signing Griffin is a very unloud thing to do. Like Loud don't sign rookies generally, right? They sign like the veterans. They sign and then pepper it with imports. Like I can't. When was the last time a rookie Loud signed a rookie?
I mean, it was Brunsey, I think was the last time. But even then, he came up from Loud Academy, right? So it's not like so it's like a little different. But I think Brunsey was the last one, to your point, right? And like even when they had their whole rebuild, because it was Dinkedo and Tay, right? And then in 2021, they were like, "F this, we're buying the Pain roster." In 2022, right? And brought in veterans, right?
I mean, it was a long time ago. So for them to even sign, like if you said to me, who is the most likely org in LTA South to sign Griffin, assuming Griffin was even an option for LTA South, Loud would have been my 7th or 8th choice, But he did a really, really good job this year for sure. You got to credit the coaching staff for that. But for Jool, if you ask me, like when Jool came in, I don't even think Jool was the best Korean in Turkey. I thought he was like the second. So I think the thing about Jool is that Fearless Draft is good for him. He's somebody who plays a lot of different champions, but I don't think he's like elite on like any champ. Like his best champion has always been Yone, and like he didn't look that good when he played into Kaze. When he played Yone into Kaze, even though it's supposed to be a favorite matchup for Yone, right? Yone into Samus. So to me, like Jool does stuff for the team, but I wonder what his peak is. The problem with players like this is I feel that he shouldn't really. I feel that if he just focused on playing like 8 champions, like to a really, really high level, he could probably be better than he's showing versus like playing 20 champions, 25 champions, to give him a bit more flexibility in in Fearless, but I think that he's done a good job. I would say he fits well into Loud's system, and I would give Ray's the coach of Loud a lot of credit for finding a system that got the most out of his players. I would think, but the problem is trying to rebuild that system now that Root is allegedly going to Army, right? It's going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah, you really need a second carry. Well, like Robo's kind of a second carry, right? But you don't want to bet on Robo necessarily at any point. Like, it kind of feels like if he's popping off, like, cool, that's great, but I don't think you want to like reliably aim for Robo to be like a person to build your team around. But like, he's a great influence to have on the top lane when he's on form. But I think Loud feels like they really need to get like a big bot lane signing to move forward with this properly. And it's, again, like, we've seen some, because they don't seem to like doing rookies as much, maybe they will do more now with the success for Griffin, but Griffin almost feels weird to call him a rookie just because his name has been like in the ecosystem for so long that it feels like, everyone knows who Griffin is, even though he's not played like a stitch of tier 1 at any point. So it feels like it really depends on what the bot lane signing is. And, you know, Red's already snapped up Rebello, which seems to be like a hot prospect that's working really well. Marvin seems to have kind of drowned in Fluxu W7M hell for a while, and I don't know if that's like the same way he felt on Pain Academy. Or like Titan is locked down, surely Titan's locked down by Pain. So.
He will get a lot of money from somebody, whether it is his current employers or not.
And Morteus, obviously VKS has been building Morteus. The brand loyalty Morteus is going to have for CL and Cade is going to be super high. You're not stealing him away anytime soon. But when he said that, like, almost the last team you'd expect to sign Loud would be Griffin. And like, for a very solid reason, which is like, historically Loud, that's not the strategy they use when they scout. But when, on an emotional level, when you see Loud and Griffin, you go, well, obviously, like, this is like the most Loud-esque player that he's now become like the marquee face of the brand in about a week. Like, and it seems like it works so well. And once they open their field of vision a bit more, there are Loud players like all over the place that you can grab if you're willing to spot them. And that seems to have worked really, really well. And that's definitely the one that we don't want Riot to go, okay, you have to give your North American players back. And we go, no, we really don't. We'd really love to keep Griffin, please.
We actually really like this guy.
We like this one. Can we keep this one? This is our favorite.
I mean, I will say Griffin's Twitter game is like unmatched. Like he is like S+ tier.
And he got on stage and pulled the abs out, like on stage after a single W. Like, he knows where he is. He knows what region he's playing to.
He is the most Brazilian gringo because like he lets his personality go like 1,000 miles an hour, and the Brazilians and the Loud fans especially, right? They just gobble that up. Right. And I think it's almost better that he came to a team like Loud. I feel like, let's say, for example, he had gotten into a team like Pain, that I think Pain is a bit more of a pressure cooker because the expectations are just higher. It's not that, I mean, obviously they have a bigger fan base and more ravenous. But to me, my read on the Loud fan base was like, okay, in the post-Tinones era, like, we have to do our best to kind of scrap together a team around Root and Robo and just try to like make one last push for top 3, right? And for like cross conference. I think the Loud fan base was kind of resigned to like, okay, maybe 2026 is the year that we do kind of a full-on reset. So getting Griffin and having that be the success that it was, I think that was like found money. They were like, the team was actually not that good. Root was kind of invisible at times this year, which is very uncharacteristic of him. It's all okay because we had a really good time.
Yeah, like, it's a good start for next year. The foundation's really solid, and I think it just really pumps that they still have like that top side playing so well. And then the rest of it's like, please just build us a good mid and bot side to go with top. And like, I think Loud fans will be happy. And
I mean, the scary thing though is that NA's off season this year starts really, really early because 100 Thieves, obviously they're not in the league, right? So you have 7. So you assume FlyQuest are not making any changes. I mean, maybe mid, but like mid is the only one you could. Maybe you try to bring in Quid, right? But I mean, that's a decision that you will probably think about when you're at Worlds, right? After you're at Worlds, but the other 7 teams who are going to be in the league next year all have a very, very long off season, and the problem is Griffin. If anything, if you're a Loud fan, maybe he played a bit too well this split.
Because now Team Liquid's like, hang on,
or Cloud9 maybe, or like
the big
rumblings there,
that to me is.
I was always resigned to the fact that, like, for me, because I would love for him to stay in Brazil, obviously, but I was always kind of the mind that, and maybe this is just like a self-preservation thing, of like, no, Griffin is going to use this almost as a launching pad, right? He comes to Brazil. If it all goes really well for him, then he could put himself on kind of the map of tier 1 North American orgs, right? And maybe they take a punt on him, right? But I do think also that I guess you have to take Griffin's Twitter game at face value. He does seem to have taken to the region to a degree. I think he had a better time than he thought he was going to. So I do think the odds are higher that he stays than normal. But kind of to certain points we've talked about, maybe you have to make a business decision, if you will. Maybe there are certain financial realities that you go, look, I kind of, we can't compete down here as much. But we'll see. I do think his offseason plans are more in flux than I thought at the beginning or even middle of this of Split 3.
I mean, so obviously I had faith in Griffin before he joined now. But selfishly, I thought that I would hope that maybe it would take him 18 months, to be where he is now.
No, he went. His trajectory was
softer landing, perhaps, and then.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting for Loud because maybe it will make them think a little bit more about bringing rookies in the future. Like, for the AD carry, there's some decent AD carries in Academy. Maybe you want to go, you take a punt with Griffin. Maybe you want to take a punt, and I don't know. Dudu is like 17, huh?
I think so.
The Kaboom. Yeah, or like maybe you see somebody else that you want to go for there. But yeah, it remains to be seen what they do. But I mean, to go back to Jool, is Jool an important part of the team? I mean, I think you don't sacrifice, even if Jool had some individual poor performances. I think his synergy with Griffin is pretty good, right? So maybe you don't think about making that change if Griffin stays, but maybe if he leaves, maybe you at least think about it. You at least entertain the options, right? So I think that's where you do.
Yeah, because I was trying to think about players either on lower teams or in CD with potential, because we do have potential moves right here. Like, obviously in every single offseason where Pain doesn't win, there's who's going to replace the Pain player XYZ, whatever. And the same with Loud, when we know that we know they need an AD carry. There's some people arguing if they need a mid laner or they don't, right? Support potentially. Do you get a whole new bot lane in? Is Redbird still kicking around? All of these questions for Loud, and start thinking about okay, who can we pillage for good players? And I was kind of struggling, I guess, especially for mids and AD carries, as you say, Dudu's one, but there's multiple teams I think could be asking these questions, because Red just got done just promoting their academy talent, VKS over this last year, then pulling Morteus up for this year and doing that. And I'm worried it's just a point where we've just taken all the good ones, and there's a year where we need to build a few more. And a couple of teams really need one, but I'm trying to think of other
I think there is a concern that it does get a bit revolving door E. Let's say that this is not me reporting anything. Let's say FURIA make a change in mid lane, right? Tuts will find a job. You'd like to think, right? Maybe Loud take a kick on him. I think he was on Loud Academy at one point way back when, right? So there's some connection there. Fu, the greatest Brazilian prospect that never kind of lived up to his billing. Dude. I mean, I would wager half of my next paycheck that LTA South, a CBLOL team will say, no, there's something there, right? Do we do that? But I think kind of to that point, I know, and maybe RMC would be a better one to kind of ask about this, or Peter, you've seen, kind of in CD, I think that's the question, right? And then the Brazilian mid lane pool discussion has been had for a while, especially after Tinones and Dinketo retired, right? It's how shallow is this kind of domestic mid pool? Is it as bad as people say?
So I'm going to get flamed for lots of fans for saying this, but you know who played really well this year in CD? Envy played really well in CD.
Yes, bro.
We busted out the Vex. We got playoff Envy Vex, mate. Man. Yeah. But I do think, to your point, Peter, I do think that's going to be a tough sell, right? Whether it should or shouldn't be, I think that might be a tough sell to a fan base.
Yeah, it's because I don't know. I don't even know why he got sent down in the first place, man. Because his last split on Red, I think it was, I don't think it was bad. I think it was like a perfectly good split on like a red roster that was still trapped in like Aegis jail, and like I don't know. I felt like or maybe it was Los Grandes the last split that he did in Tier 1. That one was a little more sus, to be fair. But like I was surprised when Envy disappeared from Tier 1 at that point, when I was like, well, it doesn't feel like we've replaced him with like this exceptional new mid laner that's obviously better. And I don't know, I felt a bit bad for him.
I mean, if you were going to kick MV, you should have kicked him 2 years ago. Like, I don't think you should have kicked him last year, right? Like he had a pretty rough year. Like, either 2 or 3 years ago, I remember was the rough year. But for people that don't watch CD, like, it's like I can't pronounce it properly, but basically, in upper bracket, if Flamengo draft like an actual composition in Game 5 against Isurus in upper bracket, they actually, they beat Isurus in upper bracket. And Envy he had to play Zoe in the final game, and he actually didn't have a bad Zoe game. He had a pretty good series. He had like a really insane Vex game, he had a really insane Syndra game, and then a pretty good Zoe game, but like, the draft was just so unplayable. And then obviously they had the mishap in lower bracket as well, so I don't know. I think maybe if he wins that upper bracket, maybe he is in CBLOL, like either on Flamengo or on a different team, But that's just how it rolls sometimes.
Okay, here's maybe the most important question that I personally am going to ask you.
I know exactly what you're
and 404 knows the question I'm going to ask. How good do you think House is?
There are a wide spread of opinions.
This is like my hear me out player.
So if you ask me how good, I think what House needs is he needs. So the situation with Boral is that Boral was suffering a lot, and they Seal went to Odoamne and basically said, can you help us out here, right? And I think that Odoamne was their top lane coach for like a few weeks or something like this, right? Sure. And if you ask me for House, how good is House? I think House needs somebody on whichever team he's on next year to basically go to Humanoid, because from the sounds of it, maybe he's retiring, maybe he's not. Like, okay, if he's not retiring, obviously he's not an option. But basically, you need to find somebody who is like, understands how to lane, can like drill it hard into his head, and like be like a no-nonsense coach that can basically go and say to him, listen to me, do this shit, right? And then sort it out. Like I don't know how skilled Tinones is at coaching, or if he even wants to do something like this, right? But if you said to me like Tockers is in the league, right? But if you said to me a year ago, what does House need? House needs like a split or 2 splits of somebody like Tockers or like Humanoid or something like this, literally yelling at him to like fix his shit, right? And then and teaching him like some core fundamentals, because his instincts are good, but
no, there's something there.
You can't just have instincts. You can't just like win on instincts. At some point, you have to develop the sophistication, and I don't think he's developed that. I don't think it's too late for him, but I think that that's something that's missing, and I don't know. I think you only get that. Like, I'm not sure even a coach like me or Seal could do something like that. I think you really need like an ex-pro who's been through it all, who's found success, to literally sit down with him and just go over those kind of things, right?
Someone who has the clout I think that's to have him listen to them.
Yeah, like
exactly. But also like to just have him to like see things from the player side. Sometimes you need that, right? Like and I just say, as an example, look at Boao and Odoamne and look at the difference it made for him going into summer, right?
I actually didn't know that Odoamne thing, but like,
involved, and that makes sense because he did just become good.
But that really goes to show you. I mean, like, I think now less so, but in the middle of the year, and like, look, CL, like, he's clearly like an emotional dude, and he's not afraid to speak his mind, and like, he makes a lot of promises, and to be fair, he's kept most of them. I think if you were there were points in the middle of this year. Yeah, he kept the big ones. In the middle of this year and in the middle of last year, there were points where you could have polled me, right, and said like, how will Cade finish? Like as far as like how well I thought Cade were going to finish, and what he managed to do with the amount of time that he was able to, and 2 essentially completely different rosters, right? The short term like success that he has had, I think cannot be like overstated in his impact on that. But I think to your point, Peter, the more you found out about this dude's connections, right? And you have to think that was a big part of why Cade brought him in, is that, no, this dude can call in favors from anybody, right?
Impact.
And use these exactly. The impact thing was like, like people in North America, like thank God Cade didn't beat FlyQuest, because North America, I think there would have been an actual like, hey, is there like an antitrust law that he just violated? Is there like, can we take legal action? Yeah. Like Impact's contract, it's up at the end of this year, but has it actually expired? Like, I think there would have been like an actual kerfuffle. People were like jokingly mad about that.
Indict him for sedition? This is surely not.
Yeah, it's like Impact. What the shit, dude? Why did you do that?
But I think the thing about Seal is he firstly he has the contacts, but also he's like not too proud to use them. Like he will just like go,
But that is part of being a great leader is knowing when you don't have all the answers, but knowing how to be connected and use people who do have the answers. Right, and that's just as valuable.
To wrap up on Howes, the position that I've ended up on him is he really needs the right like back room, the right coaching staff to redirect him in some way, because it does feel like he's trapped in kind of old school Brazilian habits that I think just don't fly anymore, which is a good thing. And that's like he's been my guy for so long. How do we fix him? How do I fix him? Please, just
But he's still young, no?
He is. Yeah,
he's 24. That's the crazy. He's been around forever.
He's still 24.
Yeah.
I just looked that up because I'm like, I know he's young. Whereas like Envy's 27. Right? Like, and look, it's not, you can still do it. But like, the dude 24 and 27 is huge. But it feels like House has been around for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's still 24 is crazy.
Dude, the fact that Faker's only 29 really freaks me out, bro. Like, that's messed me up when I saw that. He was like the oldest player at Worlds and he's 29. I was like, I don't want to see that. Just delete the article, dude.
And then Dokla's like the second oldest at 28.
Yeah. So, so that's like, because watching House play on Leviathan, or like the split before when he was in CD, it was like not good. Like, he did not actually really perform in CD. We're like, how has this gone so wrong? But then he came back onto Leviathan, and actually the combination of him and Seo looked like a really good pair of carries that were like holding down games, and like he was playing out like very good individual performances. Like sometimes the games weren't winnable when your Gwen's 1-7 or whatever, but like it's I was like, okay, like he's back in tier 1 and he's actually not completely fallen off. And I hope that there is a future for him somewhere, because that's I'd hate to see that go to waste.
I mean, like, let me think carefully about how I'm going to phrase this. Was there anything that came out about why Leviathan kicked Pro Delta?
Not that I saw, but to be honest, the optics of it really just feel like the prod's fall off is now having him being like hot potatoed around low level teams, and it just like it seems like the tracking of like Superbren, our community manager, still like weeps for the pain Pro Delta, how did we get here kind of question. And it never really seemed to make sense. He just kind of, it seemed like he was like playing down to the level that the team was at or something like this, but it's very hard to tell.
But I mean, that guy was really, really good in winter. He was like maybe it was between him or Jose Diodo for like MVP of the league, right? In the first split.
Because Leviathan and Isurus was the final in that one, right? And Leviathan knocked out Pain and that was with Cody. And it was great. Like that was a very exciting time for the LLA being merged in and actually having like both of their teams come up. But then it just, I don't know, man. There didn't seem to be any chatter about it or any perceivable reason. It just stopped working. Like,
it's like, I mean, the problem I have with Leviathan is that I feel that even worse than Pain, like they don't know how to play around jungler at all. Like scary, especially in his. So when Leviathan cross map, so let's say it's a split map situation, right? So you're in mid game and both teams are playing 4-1 variations, right? And one you split the map and you're trading. Let's say you trade the tier 2 towers and then you retake, right? Like Scary doesn't retake. Like he goes way too fast. Into the other side of the map, and he's died many times. Like when he's when he's retaking weak side, teams just sometimes camp a bush for him, and then he just always dies because he's retaking too fast. And one thing that they were doing with ProDelta that was really effective in winter, that they kind of stopped doing in spring, and I think it really hurt the team a lot, is that he was often doing like a double recall, right? So he would base first, immediately come onto the map, place vision in the river, don't go too deep, right? River or like really, really shallow vision. Then he would base again, and then Scary would like be able to play safer, and then basically ProDelta would like base twice and then have like double the wards to place on when they were retaking their weak side. And I feel that without that existing, this team looks really, really lost in certain like macro situations in the mid game, right? Because you've got Zothra, who good team fighter, slightly suspect laning, but like he's good at team fighting. But he's just happy to sacrifice everything, right? Like, you know, he doesn't want to hit the tier 2 tower. He wants to go to mid no matter what. And so you're always in this situation with this team where they can't really ever get control of the map because they're off tempo retaking their weak side, right? Their jungle support are not like taking it together. Then they can't really push out, like in a trade side situation. Zothra never wants to push out as far as he possibly can. And he's not very smart about playing around fog and things like this. Like, he always wants to group if he can do it. Whereas the best top laners, they will, like, maybe they go to mid 40% of the time and they stay in fog 60% of the time, you know, to keep people guessing. You don't want to, like, only split push or only go to mid. But, so they're never pushing out in cross-map situations. So and they're always really inefficient at retaking weak side. So they just bleed out these games over and over again unless the other team fights them. And I think this is the problem. What happened in playoffs in summer is that basically teams just, when teams were fighting them, they were in their comfort zone. But if you just played the map, like, they just couldn't do anything. And I think that's what they lost by making the support change.
Yeah. It was on the surface an improvement, but ultimately still a team that doesn't really have anywhere to go, I think, in the standings. And especially when you're looking at a top 5 that is VKS, Red, Pain, Furia, and Loud, kind of, depending on where Loud goes on roster. We're not cracking that with what the bottom 3 are currently doing, so we'll have to see. But to bounce forward a little bit onto some of those top teams, we wanted to ask you a little bit and just get your kind of a bit of discussion on Tockers coaching, because you mentioned before as a player, as a guy that you've worked with, and with this Red roster, when Red finally broke the shackles of we have to run Aegis, and how do we make a team that works with Aegis, and the answer eventually just seemed to be nothing, and it just like stopped working, and they tried punishing him in Academy and bringing him back and bringing Grefthar back and swapping and blah 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 blah, just kind of so they completely revamp. They bring in Kaze, they bring up Rebello, they keep Frosty, they keep FMB, and they bring up Doom, and they bring in Tockers. So why do you think this worked so well compared to what it could have been, especially given the problems that Red had? Like, it seemed like they had such an issue with like the coaching situation before and just weren't able to get anything to right. And there was a bunch of drama about the CEO getting involved and all this stuff. Just kind of, it seemed like a mess, right? And we bring Tockers in, and everyone's rowing in the same direction, and we're second, like just straight after that in one split. So just, I guess, what do you think Tockers is bringing there, like from what you know from him as a guy, and what you think he's bringing to coaching? Sure. Like, what do you think is kind of the influence that he's having to corral these young guys?
So I could talk about this for like hours, so I'll try to find the clip version.
Yeah.
But basically, if you want to know what Tockers' impact, I think the public narrative is slightly different from what I think he's actually contributed to it. So the public narrative is Kaze is the best player on Red. Tockers has like turned this guy into a god, and he is like, obviously he's a mid lane. He used to be a mid laner, so he's just turned Kaze into this like really insane guy, and that's Red play through mid jungle and the support and things like this, but it's essentially how they're playing through the mid laner. And the others, Rebello and FMB, are just doing their job and team fighting. So I think this is like, I don't really think that's quite what's going on. I think with Kaze was always like cracked, right? Like he's always been the type of guy who will flip it, he will take risks, and you just accept that that's who you have, and he has talent, but he's a player that you want to put lots of resources into for both reasons, because other teams will target him, and because if you enable him, he's going to be able to do great things, right? But I think what Tockers has done with Kaze is kind of like add a bit more sophistication to his game, like how he's playing the side lanes, how he's pushing his limits on sides, how picking his windows. I think still with Kaze, his biggest weakness, I think, is he's not always thinking about why he's trading in lane. So he will, if he sees an opportunity to get a positive trade, he will always go for the trade.
Yeah.
But sometimes even a winning trade is not winning if the enemy jungle or the enemy support is coming to mid first, right? Or because your wave is in a bad position where your jungler is 3 waves away from being able to help you, right? So I think that's something that I think he's improved a bit, but he hasn't really fixed. But Tockers has basically helped him a lot with his side laning, and I think they obviously have synergy, right? As a coach and mid. But if you want to say what the Tockers actually do for the team, I think firstly, Tockers is obviously a coach that has, as a player as well, who has a lot of self-confidence. Like the way that he drafts, like fucking hell, man. Like he's literally giving the opposing team, he's literally happy to go 1-0 down every series. Or be like 30-17.
Give them all of their power picks in game 1 and then hope that's enough to then spoil their fearless for the rest of the series strat.
So
yeah.
I mean, by the numbers, maybe that's the correct thing to do, right? You're like a perfectly analytical coach, and you're like, okay, we have 30% win rate in this game, but now we have 55, 60% in every single other game, so like it's worth it. But I mean, that's not how human beings normally think, like so they're like, shit, we're 1-0 down, are we going to go and
it certainly looked less worth it in the cross conference. It seemed to stall a little bit the strategy, but
I mean, they were close in that game too, but I think the thing that threw them in cross conference is the lane swap, because game 1 and game 3 were both decided by lane swaps. The game 1 by 100 Thieves doing the lane swap, which Red didn't know how to respond to. Game 3 where they swapped their like top lane Smolder into a Ziggs instead of pushing.
Yeah, that was
a choice. That was a choice.
Yeah,
but game 2 was pretty close, right? Like I wonder if like lane swaps weren't a thing, whether it would have been a closer series than they actually showed. But I think with Tockers, like if you're going to do that and your players buy into it, it means that they trust you, right? Like they have a lot of faith in you and they have a lot of confidence. And I think you can see this in FMB, because I mean the big thing about FMB is that FMB has always been talented. Like everyone has always known FMB is talented. But what's his issue? Always chokes in playoffs. Always chokes in playoffs. And what is the big thing that Tockers brought? He was like super confident in playoffs, was playing to his limits. And he was probably the best player across the playoffs.
I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, if nothing else, I feel like maybe it stuck out to me because I am so used to FNB falling on his face in playoffs that like FNB when he went out there and like put Dokla in the blender,
he
and
certainly
was like,
felt
oh
like
shit,
the best player at cross conference for sure. I think because FNB was like 1v2ing on Yorick and like offering depth.
His Yorick game, I was, oh my god,
I felt something, bro. I felt something in the game.
But I mean, this is something. I really want FNB to do well, right? Like he's like my favorite Brazilian player, right?
We on this podcast and this talent crew have also been like wishing to get FNB to international somehow for many years at this point, just to see how he does.
But there is but the big thing you can see is like that is the difference, right? Like I don't know, I don't think Tockers has particularly made FNB a better player, but he's given him self-confidence. Right? Like he's given him belief, he's given him self-confidence, and like he's made the team play to him in a more nuanced way than they were doing before. Okay, so I think he's had an impact on FNB. He's had a massive impact on Doom.
That's
I know we were playing Aegis a bit better, but like, let's be clear, in spring, Aegis was better than Doom, right? Like,
yes,
Doom was not.
He was. He had like the one Nefiri game that he just milked, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, he won 6-0 on Nefiri." It's like, well, let's watch the game. Let's see how he got those kills. Nefiri was so broken at that point. I could have gotten a win on Nefiri.
Yeah, he looked like a journeyman jungler in tier 2, like before that. And then it was like the interview that Tockers gave, I think it was either at cross conference. I think it was at cross conference where he said like, I just tell him to do something or not to do something. If I tell him not to do something wrong, he never does it again. I tell him to do something next game, he's instantly doing it. Like he just responds.
He talks about like how he's the most coachable player of all time. Like he's a coach's dream. Like like Trader said, you tell him to do something, he does. You tell him not. He never makes the same mistake twice.
Yeah,
essentially.
And I mean, Tockers as a player was okay. Later on in his career, he became a primary carrier a bit more, but in his early career, he was a push and move mid laner, right? Playing for Revolta, right? And playing for Yang and Mikau, right? Like, so he knows jungle. He really understands jungle, like better than almost any mid laner in Brazilian history, right? And so he's had a massive impact on Doom, massive impact on FNB. He's obviously had something to do with Rebello. So obviously, Brant's, there's reasons outside the game why he's not on the team anymore. But the default, it would not have been to promote Rebello. There's no way Red Kenned's just like automatically go to Rebello without Tocker's blessing, right? So if you ask me what's the impact he's having on this team, firstly, he's improving the team's mid-game macro. He's giving them a lot of self-confidence, even if he's doing stuff that, for me, it's really risky. Like, what he's doing is really risky. But if your players buy in, it doesn't matter, right? Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He's clearly has a lot of trust in his players, and his players have a lot of trust in him and self-belief in him. And that makes everything function, right? And I think that's why Red got better so quickly. It's not like you can't fundamentally change who a player is in 2 months, right? But what you can do is you can like direct them in the right direction, or you can give them self-belief or something like this. And it's clear Red did improve, right? So I think ironically the narrative is Kaze is like the person he's had the biggest impact on. Actually, you ask me, Kaze is probably the fourth. I think it's like number 1 is Doom, number 2 is FNB. Number 3 is Rebello, because I don't think Rebello would even be in the team. And then number 4 is Kaze, and then Frosty. Like, I mean, he's always been that guy, right? Like, I don't think he's made too big an impact on Frosty, but like, so that's what I think Tockers brings to Red, and it's working, right?
Well, and kind of to that point, I want to ask a question, like, how much, because Tockers is a first-time tier 1 head coach, right? So like, maybe you don't have as much.
Second, he was a Liberty, no? Like back in the day, way back. I think he had an unsuccessful.
Was he their head coach though, or am I?
I don't remember. Was he just, like, it was a long time ago. It was like a decade ago now.
Okay. Okay. Well, then maybe some could argue maybe that even like it's like, oh, why should I trust this guy? He was kind of one and done or whatever. But like, I mean, the one asked because of the point you mentioned about him being a former player, and like. How much do you think that again? But he's coming into a new situation where 3/5 of his roster has been, flipped on its head. One of those roles probably not by his choice, right? There was off the wrist stuff with Brunsey. Like, how much do you think him being a former player, and not just being any former player, being Tockers, a guy who people put on their Mount Rushmore of Brazilian players, how much do you think that helped in terms of him getting buy-in from a guy like FNB who has had so many coaches in his career? Right? It's like, why should I trust this guy? And he's the one that finally gets the best out of him.
So I think it's worth saying this isn't Tockers coming into pain. This is Tockers coming into Red Kenned's, right? He's the guy who brought Red Kenned's their first title. He's the guy who like he was the guy on Red. Like if there's anyone that his Red title, if there's any org that is going to get more buy-in for a rookie head coach and to give him more time, it's him on Red Kenned's. This is why I think. You've got to be a little bit careful about. So I've seen a lot of rumors for other players moving into coaching. I think that if every team could trust their transitioning player into coach as much as Red Kenned's trust Tockers, then you'd see a lot more success. But what I think is going to happen is a lot of maybe other ex-players will come into coaching, and then they're not going to get the time, or they're not going to get the buy-in. So I think let's frame it not as Tockers, but Tockers on Red Kenned's, because I think that makes a big difference.
Sure.
Secondly, I think that the Tockers who I coached in 2016 versus when I wasn't his coach like later on, the thing. I think he's matured a lot in the last 10 years, by going into other esports, by being in situations where things didn't come easy to him, right? Because, I mean, I think League, he just naturally has a really good gift for understanding League, right? But the problem with players like this, when they transition into coaching, and this is not just in esports, it's in like conventional sports as well, right? Is that things which are really obvious to you are not very obvious to anyone else. And in fact, would not have been obvious to you as a rookie, right? But you're seeing like the best version of yourself, right, in terms of game knowledge, working with the worst potential version of these rookies you're bringing up, right? And that can be incredibly frustrating. Like, it can be so frustrating if you really understand what's going on. And I think that actually Tockers going through like failure and then going into his co-stream and like having to explain to like gold, silver players like really complicated stuff. I think actually that probably helped him a lot. I think that's probably like helped him to explain these things in a way that doesn't like annoy him, right? Because compared to Twitch chat, like I can't imagine who's the most troublesome person on that team. I don't even know.
Go and flame the co-stream and flame the gold Twitch chatters, and then you can go back into the scrim room and coach Doom and be like, oh, thank goodness. Okay, right. This guy just does what I say. Oh my god, it's perfect.
So it's really better for his mental, Like, and I think
that's his day off.
So exactly, it's your day off. You go stream Twitch, and then you're like,
that's the work.
It's a full day of stream today. I'm so happy.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that the big thing about Tockers, if I had to like do it, it's set what his strengths are. It's like game knowledge, work ethic, ability to explain really complicated stuff in a very easy way, self-confidence, self-belief, and just like courage in his convictions. Like he's not the type of like. There's a lot of coaches who will have ideas, and then their star player on the team will be like, "No," and then you're like, "Well,"
and then you're kind of stuck.
And then sometimes you. It sounds. This is literally how these arguments go. They're not quite like one word, but it's like you should try it this way. And then you go home that evening and you spend 4 hours watching LCK VODs, and then you like find the trophy did things in this exact same way, and then you come back to your thing, all triumphant. You're like, look at these VODs. You see, I told you Gen G were doing things this way, and then you're like, yeah, sure, I guess. They don't even remember the discussion we had for like 30 minutes later. Whereas I think like I can't imagine like anyone doing that with Tockers. Like I think Tockers would just cut it out. I cut it out early in the process, I think.
Yeah. There's a good thing for us to bounce forward onto here, which is still on the kind of the practice and the coaching aspect. Is one of the big questions in Split 3 was the monumental collapse of FURIA, going from pushing the expectations of the region at MSI, taking G2 to 5 games and this, that, and the other, and then coming back into Split 3 and looking good, but not looking like the dominant force they looked like in Split 2 necessarily, looking a little bit solved, a little bit more flawed, and then completely gigabombing out of playoffs. I believe 0-6, 0-3, 0-3 against
3-0.
VKS, and then Loud, was it? Somebody who they should
I think it was Loud.
By.
Yeah.
So and one of the things that came out afterwards when they were talking to Tatu, talking to ThinkCard, was that they had tried to adopt post MSI a sort of Eastern scrim block style of like 8 scrim days or something. And I guess I wanted to ask, one, do you think it's just like an issue of tough transition of burnout or something like this, and that they should still stick at it? Do you think this kind of strategy can work in Brazil as it currently is in terms of the team environment, the practice environment? Obviously, there's a lot of behind the scenes
like
stuff.
The culture.
And the culture. There's obviously behind the scenes stuff that we might not be privy to say for sure. But what is your read on that kind of practice methodology in CBLOL?
So I think just from the outside, so I don't know how things are between here. I haven't talked to Maestro or ThinkCard about it, but to me it seems crazy to do this after EWC MSI, because it means you didn't get a break, right? And the irony is that because they were doing all these night blocks, it meant that Keith and Red started doing tons of night blocks as well, right? But they were fresher, right? So they're gaining from these night blocks, whereas the big danger for doing night blocks is always that you pick up bad habits. Right? Because the big risk is often when you get into the third block of a day, you're often autopiloting a bit, right? And then when you're autopiloting and you're like really picking up, that's when like mentally things can go really, really wrong, right? Because the habits you have when you're exhausted, like you can't like keep yourself in check, right? So if you ask me what happened with FURIA, that's what it looked like. In a lot of these games, it looked like they lacked kind of any creativity. It looked like they were tired, right? And you can see this because you ask what made FURIA such a scary team. It's how creative they were in the early game. And sure, their mid game wasn't always like insane, but they wouldn't just play standard every single time, right? In the mid game, they would have like this little spark of creativity. You could always rely on like Tattoo to do something really, really weird, or like Toots, maybe he pushes out his side and he opens through the other solo laner's lane, right? And they weren't doing this that much. Like they didn't have that creativity, and to me, that's one of two things. It's either you've overcoached it or you're exhausted. And knowing Thinkard, I don't think Thinkard's the type of coach who's going to like overcoach. Like when I say overcoach, it means like you have like a set playbook and you have to stick to your playbook no matter what.
Yeah, you don't get out anyway.
Yeah. I also feel like that, you correct me if I'm wrong, this might be just conjecture. I also feel like that doesn't really fly in Brazil unless you have a lot of clout before.
Well, I mean, Tabe tried it, and it didn't work. But I think actually though the biggest issue in Brazil. So people are saying, oh, why can't you do 3 blocks? People in Korea do 3 blocks. But I think actually in the West we're really bad at downtime, like recovery time. So the reason why you can do these kind of things in, let's say, China is people burn out in China all the time. Right, you just don't hear about it because it's not talked about publicly. Because you don't want to make your players lose face. You don't want to make your coaching staff lose face. You don't want to like embarrass yourself in front of the fans. But if players burn out, you just give them a break. You say like go home today. Like don't come into the office today. You're like clearly really exhausted or things like this. But the academy guy will play, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily a bad thing for that to happen. But the problem is you don't have academy teams in Brazil. And I think the biggest ego thing is if I, as a coach, told you go home and your academy guy will play because you need a rest, I don't think there are many Western players who would appreciate that, being told that.
The alarm bells go off.
Yeah, the alarm bells go off. Like, do they want to drop me?
He's going to steal my spot. They're going to...
Yeah. But if this, so I don't know LCK, like I just have no contacts in LCK, right? But I know in LPL, this happens frequently, right? Like it's just, the fact that a guy is not scrimming a scrim day, it's fine, like it's not the end of the world. Yeah. And that lets you like push yourself to like, I said that as the good side. Now, obviously, the bad side is like they're playing a very unhealthy amount of games. You're not getting proper rest. Ideally, you wouldn't want your players to burn out. But I think that like our burnout mechanisms for recovering from burnout are not very good, and that's why I think limited scrims is better. Because remember that if you can't perform at 100, you can't push yourself 100% for the entire year, right? So it's better to just push yourself 60% and then scale up into playoffs. So you've always got more to give. But you go like 80%, 90%, 100% right from the start. What you have to give in playoffs. What happens if things are going bad, right? Whereas if things are going bad and you're at 60%, you could always ramp up, right? Yeah. You've always got that extra thing you can push in. So I don't think it's a culture issue. Well, it is. I think it's a culture issue, but it's not a cultural issue in terms of work ethic.
Yeah,
it's not a culture issue. Yeah. It's more like it's like they're less compatible.
Yeah, it
they're less compatible.
Like FURIA was so that they were obviously so like energized after that mid-season like off-season because they did like they on one hand they did really well.
They scaled into split 2.
Yeah, but they were also like
they were like
they were
1,000 miles an hour,
holding like really good regional historic results in one hand with we were so close to doing even more so many times. You could hear in like Tuts and Tattoo in their like post-game interviews, they were like, we should have won that. We were so close. We know we're good enough to win it. And they were clearly that they will have gone into that practice like burning literally to practice and get better and do it. And they'll have had the work ethic will have been absolutely not the issue. They'll have been like asking for 4 scrim block days, right? And it just wasn't the right choice. But it always feels like I want to do more. I'm so ready to do more, and you just burn yourself out. And at some point, you can't.
But I mean, I think yeah. They to be clear, like they should have beaten G2 3-1, right? Like they got kind of stomped in the last game, but they should have beaten G2 3-1. And they beat Cloud9. They beat Cloud9 in the EWC.
Yeah.
So I agree, but like there are some times where your players will, if you have the type of players that FURIA have, they don't want to take a break. Right, like they want to push themselves and push themselves and push themselves.
They're so young and they're getting their first taste of like actual success. And Tattoo is like he is an incandescent ball of energy.
And he held up the best in that last split of like even if everyone was falling away, he was still being himself and making things happen and being like that slightly creative edge. But it just didn't. it wasn't enough. The supporting pieces weren't firing in the same way, and yeah.
I mean, I think it's so without knowing exactly what happened behind the scenes, right? Like I think that it's a really, really valuable learning experience for everyone on FURIA. But ironically, because FURIA pushed themselves really hard, I think Keed and Red like really, really benefited because like they were like, holy shit, FURIA are doing all of this extra work without realizing that FURIA are tired and pushing themselves a lot. We better push ourselves too, and then it really benefited them, right? A lot. So it helped the region, you know. Thank you for your sacrifice for the region. And,
they burnt themselves at the altar of CBLOL, and VKS look great. So cool. So this does move forward on to kind of my last main question about like the region, and then we'll talk a little bit about Worlds. But I'm loving that we've had so much to talk about here. Is for next year, obviously we don't know what the off season is going to do to teams like Loud, teams like Pain. I would be honestly quite surprised if VKS or FURIA see major changes, but it's not out of the question. But who do you currently feel has a higher ceiling going into next year when we have so many teams that are on the up, that are teams like VKS that are peaking right now, FURIA who crashed and burned but were like right up there once.
But they showed a peak that was as high as anything we've seen.
Where Red can go, given how fresh so many of their players are. Like, what is your read on who you think's actually going to come in as the favorite in 2026?
Okay, so those are two different questions, right? One is about peak, one is about favorites, okay? Because if we're talking about favorites, there's three people I'm looking at, right? The first is Griffin in CBLOL. Second is Trimby in CBLOL. The third question is, because I mean, he won the title, but you know. And then the third question is Seos in CBLOL. But because if they change the rules with the imports, maybe Seos is back, right? And I think those so leaving aside Seos because that's outside anyone's control, right? Like I think the impact of Trimby and or Griffin leaving can like completely make or break how those teams will come in at the start of next year. So that's the first question. Okay, if you are that's why I'm a little hesitant to think about a power ranking now because you know it depends a lot. It depends what Pain do in their offseason. You know. But if you ask me who has the highest potential, I think probably FURIA or Red. I think Keed are very close to like. I don't think Keed without making roster changes can push themselves further, but they're pretty fucking good right now, right? They're the second best team in LTA, right? You know, no shame in being worse than FlyQuest.
They took a game. I'll take a game, bro. I'll take a game right now.
You know, they took a game
to Swiss and take a game at the right time, and it could be really impactful. So So when I say I don't know how much room they have to improve, it's not like I think the level's bad. It's just it's really fucking good. For fans, let me put it this way: the amount of work it takes you to get from 95 to 96% is like the same as it takes you to get from like 90 to 95% or like 80 to 90. You know, like as you go up, like every tiny little bit takes a lot more, has a lot more to improve, right? So I think if you ask me who has like the highest potential ceiling, I'm going to say it's either FURIA or it's Red. I think FURIA, we had to see Keed at Worlds, right? For now. So Keed had a very, very impressive win against 100 Thieves. Yeah.
But I want to see them push like a G2 close, right? Like if they don't even have to go against G2. If they beat Fnatic or they beat Koi or they beat like you know like Secret Wales. I don't think Secret Wales is. But if they go like
but those are games that we've lost.
Yes, exactly.
Right? When you get to international,
we've been slapped by GAM enough times that I'd like to beat them now.
But I mean, if so the thing is that I think FURIA basically by pushing G2 really, really close, I think that is very, very impressive. Obviously, they didn't close. FURIA have always had this issue in playoffs where they just don't close the game. And it definitely looked, the GAM game and the G2 game definitely looked like they didn't know they weren't comfortable closing, right? So I think if FURIA need to fix that, and they need to fix their they need to balance their rest versus
practice,
rest versus recovery, and I think those guys have a really, really high peak. Red, I think the big thing for Red is Rebello is good. He has good mechanics. He has good game sense, but his laning phase is bad. It's like in Brazil he can get away with it, but by international level he's not good enough yet, and no reason he should be good enough, right? But what Red need to do is just have somebody go over his VODs with him in the off season and how he's playing his 2v2 and that kind of thing. And then if he could, not all players are able to break that barrier, right? Like I've worked with a lot of amazing AD carries who were never able to fix their laning. But if he does that, then I think Red have really, really, really high ceiling. So I think so if you ask me who has the highest ceiling, I think assuming all goes well, I would say Red number 1, FURIA number 2, Key number 3. But right now, Key are clearly ahead because FURIA and Red have to fix major issues. With things, and they may not fix it. Right, I'm an optimist. I like to think that they can fix it, but
I feel good about
they might not be able.
The approach that they've had and the progress they've made just in such a short time already. They've had this one. FURIA's had this first big stumbling block since the Think card coming in, getting Tattoo in, and they've just been rocking ever since. And this is big hit to them. And now, I have faith in them being able to tackle it because they do talk about it in a very measured kind of. It feels like they understand what the problem is, and they're taking big swings, and they have a very committed to this kind of coaching strategy that ThinkCard's brought in, and it seems like they're happy with it. So as long as no one steals Tattoo from them, I guess that would be a problem. But
I mean, it seems like FURIA have a decent budget given that what I heard is that they were able to buy Keyed out from their top laner.
They bought it out. Yeah.
But I mean the thing is that they've improved a lot. But now comes the really hard part, right? Because it's easy. The first 20-30% is easy, and now the changes become really, really difficult. There's also interesting question, which is Zyno going to be in the league? It's pronounced Zyno, right?
I thought it was Shino, SYN XYNO.
XYNO. I don't know.
I think I've heard it in Portuguese as Shino.
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 But,
Shino.
Yeah.
I mean, is he going to be in the league next year? I mean, that also because I mean, this guy's obviously got a ton of potential. If he goes on Pain, is that does that raise Pain ceiling?
Both Pain and Loud are floating around this potential conversation until they lock a roster. And Pain, I think because Loud, we know they have to make changes because they literally do because Root's leaving. But the thing with Pain is they don't even have to there's not even any official reason to believe they are. It's just that I think the Pain fan are so convinced that they have to now, and there's always this sense that they're gonna have to make a change to strive for more. The kind of Team Liquid-esque. The assumption is that they will always make the change to shoot for getting back to the top whenever it's available, as opposed to we're gonna sit on this split and wait and get fourth this split and then shoot for first. It always feels like maybe not current Team Liquid, but kind of older Team Liquid and C9, where it's if there was a high value trade to be made, they would just make it. And Pain still feels like the fans expect that of them at this point, regardless of whether or not it's a good idea. So
I mean, their new head coach really matters. This offseason, the person that they bring in,
Zero leaving is crazy.
He's got a kind of a front office role, I guess.
Huge shift.
I mean, he's done a really good job. He has integrated Koreans. I don't think there's any other org in the West that's integrated Koreans as well as Pain have integrated Koreans over the years. So it makes sense for him to go to GM. But then if he's going to GM, who are they bringing in as a head coach? And is that head coach going to be given time? I saw Revolta was being floated around a lot. I really like Revolta, right? Which is why I don't wish this on him.
Don't do that to yourself, bro.
No, and I do that.
I think he would make Karaoke. I think he would have the same impact on Karaoke that Tockers had on Doom.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't wish for somebody that I like to go into that org at this point in time of the rebuild. All the fans are going to be crying for your blood at the first sign of weakness, but if it's not, because I just say the Revolt stuff because that's what I saw a lot of people saying online, and it's fun to tease him. I mean, I think he'd do a good job, but again, Tockers on Red Canids and Revolta on Pain are not the same thing, right? Like, Revolta has been like the antagonist for Pain for many, many years, whereas Tockers is like his family, basically to Red Canids. So, but let's say it's another coach. Like, let's say it's, I don't know, like if they bring in somebody like Vitality are really fucking stupid, right? So they said that they might fire Mac, right? So like if you could bring in somebody like Mac,
if you could bring in that would be great. That'd be so.
I'm sad that he can't bring because they're splitting the Mac and Pad dynamic duo. Sadly, because I think Pad had said that he wants to like strike out on his own and not be tied to Mac like for his whole career, which is fair enough. But I would be psyched for that because Pad's like a UK guy. He's like he's a homeboy for me. And he's like such a nice guy, and it would be nice to get that duo because they did so much. But yeah, someone like it's you kind of think Card-esque, and you bring someone in who like has so many so much experience.
Again, and you talk about someone with connections. Matt's got
FCL's getting a lot of value from Odoamne.
Holy
let's
moly,
get the Vitality connection there.
Someone who could call in some ringers to straighten out, Roamer or whatever. Like,
let's get him to get perks in and help Roamer.
I mean, you bring in something like that, but if you're going to bring, so the thing is, are you bringing in a Brazilian, right? So this is what Pain have to think about for their new head coach. Are you bringing in a Brazilian? If you're bringing in a Brazilian, do you have the backing of the org? What happened to the fact if the first split is like a 5th place in the first split? Because it's possible the top 5 are going to be really, really close next year, right? So if you come 5th, are you going to get time? Are you going to get like what support are you going to have if you're going to get a Brazilian, right? Are you going to get a like an English speaking foreigner, right? Like or like a NA or EU coach? Okay, if you're going to do that, how are you going to deal with the language problem? Because a lot of your players are Korean speaking, right? Like, are you going to make big roster changes in that way? Are you going to, what happens if your Koreans aren't comfortable in like let's say like, okay, I just say Mac. I think Mac is going to be on Vitality next year, but I just mentioned it because it's like let's say Pad, okay? Like
insert coach here,
insert big name coach here because Peyton can attract like decent, like, if Gilotto wasn't on GX, they could attract somebody like a Gilotto or a Mac or something like like a really maybe not a Dylan, but like or Grabs, but like they could attract some really
the next tier down,
and what a title! But okay, so then that's the question to answer that. Then the other question is, do you bring in a Korean, right? Okay. Makes sense. I think they're going to hire a Korean head coach. But if they do hire a Korean head coach, because Zero is GM, so that will help the relationship with the GM. And obviously, if you're putting Zero as your GM, then you're going to be signing Koreans in the future, right? So it makes sense to sign a Korean head coach. But if you're going to sign a new Korean head coach, how are you going to handle the difference in culture coming into Brazil? Right? And that is a tricky question because you don't have to fix it. You don't have to match up with the Brazilian culture because you have Carioca and Titon in the team already, who've shown that they're very flexible, right? But what happens then if one of your Koreans stops performing? Like what happens if Weiser? Like Weiser had a really bad summer. He was decent for the rest of the year, but he had a really bad summer. What happens if Weiser's really, really bad for the rest of the year, and you don't bring in a coach who's able to work with Brazilian players? Then then you're stuck, right? You don't have any leverage, right? In that kind of situation. So those are the questions that kind of Pain have to answer. I think Pain are probably going to bring in a Korean. I don't know who that Korean is yet, but there's some like Ray's, for instance, has shown that he was able to get the most out of. Like he did a really good job on Loud. Like I think the job that Ray's did on Loud is almost as impressive as what Tockers did on Red. Not as impressive, but almost as impressive.
Yeah.
Because he was working with like a tier 3 player, like Griffin's never even played tier 2, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's what we need to watch for those teams. So I don't know how to rank Pain because really it depends what they do with their coach.
Yeah, I am shocked that Stardust is still here. I'll be honest, just like still on Los Grandes in tier 2, like given how that kind of came in, and it's a weird one because obviously we don't know like the backroom talk on Stardust, but like. Came in as like a big name Korean import coach into tier 1, I think on Loud, right? Like actually didn't do much of anything. And then Los Grandes and now is in tier 2 and doesn't seem to have found any kind of success, but hasn't just turned around and walked away like a lot of the Korean imports that fail quickly do. He's actually stuck around way longer than most of them on average, but without any actual payoff yet. So I'm not sure what the deal is there, but yeah, Pain is going to be.
I mean, the difficulty is that you can have some really, really like I always go back to Tabe because like to me Tabe is like the best coach in the world, right? Like it's between Tabe and Hong, okay, as like the best coach in over the last 5 years. Even though Tabe hasn't had that much success, like he's done a lot with like not much, right? And just look at what happened to World Club like RNG after he left, or like look at what he's done with anyone's legends, right? Like. But he didn't find success in Brazil, right? Because it's a different culture. Like the cultural assimilation on the coaching side is no joke. We talk about it a lot on the playing side, but on the coaching side, it's really, really rough. So it's not for the faint-hearted, and that's why in the same way that you always have to be a bit nervous when you're bringing a Korean into Brazil. Maybe Pain less so, but just in general, you have to be nervous in the same way about coaches. But it matters a lot more for Pain. Because the decision they make on their head coach is going to make or break this year, and it's very, very given how strong the league is developing. Pain could easily come 4th and 5th an entire year next year.
Yeah,
like if
the middle class of Brazil has gotten a lot stronger, especially when you have a couple of kind of sleeping giants in like if FURIA just like tweak a couple things, it's there, right? Red and Cade, like you said, they pushed the region forward at cross conference, right? And what Red, it was just Shopify, but like. That there's something there, right? They look solid against 100 Thieves, right? Loud, like you said, with 1 or 2 things going right, they are a solid top 4 team, right? And then, you're kind of like, well, shit, like someone has to come 5th.
I forgot Pain. I guess they're 5th. Yeah, it's like, and like because we still had the reports from cross conference that the North American teams were saying that Pain was the best team in scrims, and they were like, we thought they were the strongest team from like practice, and then obviously they came on stage and looked easily the weakest, but this was like. That was what we kind of saw in playoffs where they'd already started to drop off there and it looked like things were getting worse, not better. And then it just kind of happened on stage. But it seemed like on practice, they were still able to perform to some level and presumably were getting stuff out of that, right? So and they have like such like a baked in structure in history with with that coach and with some of these players now that unwinding or reforming that in some way has got to be a big task. Who knows? I don't know what the like coachability of Titan is at this point, right? Like, if you're talking about like star players that can run that actually run the teams they're on, like the suspects for these players are people like Aegis and people like Titan, like, and how easy is that to mesh in with brand new coach, import coach? Like, I don't know. It's hard to say. But
is there any rumors on Roma?
There's no actual rumors on Romer. It's just the entire fan base calling for his head because that's what they do. But like, there's no actual concrete on him.
Sure.
They all want him to boot him back, but like, and like it's kind of the same with
the usual.
The other kind of story that was Mir. Like, I think another TL Academy player that came in on FURIA at that point. This was pre Think Card, like the last round before Think Card, who came in for one split and then got just bounced back up. And I think
the win. Thing.
Yeah, and people expect the same thing to happen to Roma, I think, but there's not been any actual word on it yet.
But I mean, if Roma's serious about staying, he should be going to Brazilian language, Portuguese language school, right? Like in this off season. So I just wondered, has anybody taken a picture of Roma?
Has anyone seen him? Is he on the attendance roster for the? Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's talk a little bit about Worlds. That was a great discussion on the region. Let's talk a little bit about Worlds. So the first thing I wanted to touch on briefly is you mentioned to us already that you don't follow the LCK particularly, but you follow a little bit more of the LPL, obviously the LTA South, and then there's a little bit of the best of the LTA North, at least by comparison through cross conference.
And so Europe and LTA, Europe LTAS. And BLG, I say.
That's my circuit, yeah.
And to be fair, those are, I think, the more interesting ones to talk about. I think with Korea, you almost kind of what you see is what you get. The most interesting thing about Korea right now is like, surely T1 don't puke all over themselves in that play-in game against IG,
not
right?
Against this IG, come on now, like we can't let this IG shoot past T1, man.
Look, that IG, they've got some sauce.
They've got the shy. They certainly have the shy. But that's about it. shit.
I mean, basically, it's like, the monkey's paw. You want Rookie versus Faker in the best of 5?
How bad do you want Rookie versus Faker?
Yeah. And then you get them when they're both like 30 almost.
Play-ins, yeah.
Yeah.
Not ideal. Right, so the question of region ranking right now, I think that there was, 2 years where the LPL just won Worlds back-to-back, and then we settled back into LCK Town since then. So I think it's probably pretty reasonable to still consider the LCK as the number 1 region just by strength and by the ASI that's going on right now. That seems to have unfolded this way with the finals, I think, being BNX versus or BNK versus Down 1. So, but when you get down further and you start looking at LPL, LCP, importantly right now, given what we've seen from specifically CFO basically recently, and then the Western leagues, I wanted to get, I guess, both of your feelings on where the kind of anyone who's not LCK lands when you're trying to get a sense of who the stronger regions are. And part of this discussion is, I think, the depth of the region that we can talk about a little bit more, because that's when the LCP becomes interesting, when South and is LTA North just FlyQuest, or is there more to it? Is LTA South previously just Loud or just Pain, and is it just VKS now? So, but in terms of putting those next 4 in a row, is there any reason to believe that the LPL isn't easily second in this region? Considering that the opinion is very low on regions like LEC right now, but is it fair, I guess, how low it is?
I don't know about the Europe things. I think that is a more nuanced question. But if you're asking about LPL, to me, if you're talking about, again, what is the ceiling of the best team fused with what is the depth of the teams that they're sending, it's hard not to see how, because I mean, you just think of to me, I just think of okay, well, where would I put the best team from LCP, LEC, LTA in there, right? What place would they get if they were just dropped into the LPL, right? Maybe they crack top 4, right? Top 3. Right, but
anything could be top esports, because anyone could be top esports. So So you have to do your voodoo beforehand with top esports. But I feel like LPL are the second best region. But I think the most fascinating discussion is the LCP discussion, which unfortunately I feel like we are maybe less qualified. I'll speak for myself. I am not qualified to have the LCP discussion because I don't know what's going on over there. I love when they come over and just beat the shit out of decent teams in internationals. That's really fun. Yeah,
but other than that, I don't know what about.
The first stand results tracking was so interesting and spoke so well for the interest of the year, with CFO and K Corp both performing super well and representing the teams well. Obviously in Le Mans Mickey Mouse tournament, but yeah.
Well, I think there's 2 things to be cautious of. Okay, so the first is obviously there's this. What's it called? It's to me, it's the Europa League of League of Legends. But let me quickly check. League of Legends Asia Invitational. Yes, that's what it's called, right? Yes. So to me, when you're judging region strength, looking at the top team of the region is not that helpful. Often, sometimes it's not even the top 2 teams. Because there were the years when Flash Wolves were so far ahead of everyone else. Yeah. Or Flash Wolves at HQ, or you had G2, being miles ahead, right? To me, generally, you want to look at, when you're looking at region strength, for how strong your middle of the table is. Okay, and frankly, right now, this Asia Invitational, the 3 teams from China that went were Weibo, Ninjas in Pajamas, and JDG, of course. JDG, right? Yeah. And those the Chinese teams who went look really, really, really not very good. Yeah. So that isn't, to an extent, I don't think too many people had a lot of expectations for NIP, but they had expectations for JDG and Weibo, didn't look very good. Just to put it in context, right? Yeah. I think also, to give you an idea of how bad it was, GAM beat JDG.
I'm looking at some of these results right now, and it's Korea seems to have just dog walked this tournament in the knockouts, especially.
Then the second thing is the other warning, canary that you have to look at is there's I don't know what it's called, but it's the the equivalent to the Americas Challenge, the tier two thing. They had the LLA team, the top two LLA, top two, which they have in Asia as well. I don't know what that's called, but it's just the America, the Asia's Challenge, the tier two league, and all the Korean Academy teams. I think they came in the top 5 positions, right? Okay, and I think in the
at all,
and I think in the Asia Challenge. It was the LCK teams were like 1, 2, 3, right? Like in the tournament. And to me, this is those competitions were always competitive in the past, right? Like between LPL and LCK, and that to me rings alarm bells. It also, there've been a few changes in the law in China. Like you're not allowed to play video games that I think until you're the age of 16 or 18.
Kids gaming until out of school.
And it's kind of impacted their talent pipeline quite a lot. And this is probably the worst time for Worlds to happen in China right now, because you've had your talent pipeline cut, and the teams haven't adapted yet to bringing in like more veteran rookies. They'll be fine in 2 years, 3 years, right? But then now is like a really, really bad time. So if you're asking me what the region strength is, I think LCK is like miles ahead. But LPL are really, really vulnerable, and they're vulnerable as well because the top 2 teams that they're sending at this tournament, who you would normally expect to be really, really solid, are TES, Top Esports, who can frankly, like all one has to do is just have one of his international performances, and that team is capable of dropping games to like anyone. And if you're capable of dropping 1 game, you're capable of dropping 2. I think best of 5. If they get to best of 5 stage, they're probably okay. But they could definitely drop a best of 3 to like to some teams. Yeah, and BLG like
have they sorted out? Have they sorted themselves out by this point? Are we?
Are we
shadow maxing, or are we just rotating junglers at the highest?
This I think is where we let Peter Dunn loose on the connection he has to BLG and his thoughts on what are a fascinating. They're a fascinating team because they are very flawed.
Yeah, but because let me put it this way: BH1 and On are like good players, right? Like I don't want to like flame these guys, right? Like they are at the peak of they are LPL champions, right? Like you.
Yes, they are.
Yep,
they are LPL champions, but they are capable of running it down in like the most disgusting way that like you could possibly imagine, right? And that makes me less confident about BLG than I have been about a China #1 seed for a very, very long time, even though I want Shadow to do well, right? Like this team is really, really vulnerable. Top Esports are pretty vulnerable as well. So like, ironically, I think anyone's Legends are the team that I have the most faith to not drop games against Western teams.
Yeah, I would more faith them to cruise through the Swiss, just not doing anything stupid, and then losing in the quarters of the set. I don't think anyone's Legends are winning as much as I love Tabe, because like Tabe is not going to underestimate these Western teams in the way that like Top Esports habitually do, forever, right? So I think LPL are the second region, but I think because of the ways that their seeding is and because of who their top 2 teams are, they are capable of there's a world where G2 beat Top Esports, or a world where G2 beat BLG. I don't think Fnatic can do it, but like FlyQuest against BLG?
Against I think FlyQuest. I would be surprised if FlyQuest didn't win a best of 3 against one LPL team over the course of this entire.
Yeah, so I think that's where the bar is for FlyQuest. I think that's what we need to see.
They can end up as the second highest placing region, like on the LCS can, with FlyQuest making it into like semis off like not getting literally Gen G in their quarterfinal this time. And then you get like
anyone not named Gen G.
Anyone else, please, and you just kind of get like one of the LPL teams that sneaks up, and maybe you have like a really fun best of 5 banger against anyone's Legend, and you squeak by, or you fight like you knock out a collapsing top who managed to kind of trip over the line into quarterfinals and then lose their mind. So like there's a very real world where FlyQuest already could have hit semifinals in the last year if they didn't have such a tough opponent in the first round. And I think,
and it's not double elim as well, right? This is still strict knockout.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, like the thing is, if you are an LTA fan, LTA or LTA North or whatever, you should be cheering for IG like nobody else against
T1.
Do
not let T1 into that Swiss.
Yeah.
Keep them out. No, they always wreak havoc on the Swiss, bro. They always do.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. And
if you're an LPL fan, right? I mean, obviously you're rooting for IG, but you are rooting for them to take out the LPL Slayers in T1, whatever voodoo they have over the LPL.
Yeah. But the way it is this year, there's only 7 LPL LCK teams, right? So there's definitely like a spot for somebody else.
Yeah, true.
Even if everyone performs really, really well, which I don't think is going to happen. There's always at least one team, right?
And even in Swiss, the last 2 years, right? Korea hasn't because it was like when it was group stage, Korea, it was like, no, there was one team 1 year in 2018. I think it was actually Gen G in 2018 where like they were like the only Korean team never to make it out of Worlds or something like that. But since it's gone to Swiss, to your points, right? It does bring a little more randomness. And to your actual point, mathematically, like you said, there will be a spot for a non-LCK or LPL team. And like you said, I just don't see that happening. There will be a Eastern team, not in the LCP, that doesn't make it out of Swiss.
I mean, if I was a gambling man, which I'm not, don't take this. This is not gambling advice. Do not gamble. I apologize if you have sponsors, but this is not advice. Do not do anything silly. But if I was that way inclined, I would expect there to be 2 teams in the top 8, and to me, that's between FlyQuest, G2, and CFO. And I think CFO.
Yeah.
I think people who have not watched that much internationals are really sleeping on CFO, and I think CFO may be like a 4 or 5 seed, not like a 7-8 seed, going into the playoffs.
Anyone who's still sleeping on CFO deserves to get clapped by them, bro, because we saw it at first hand and we saw it at MSI. These guys are so legitimate. And anyone who isn't aware of that has
it's not like smoke and mirrors best of 1 bullshit. Like, this is an actually good team that they've proven over the course of the year.
And the one matchup you, so sorry to sidetrack into talking about Asia, but the one matchup you really want to see is KT CFO. Because KT, I've seen limited LCK games, but KT don't win when they don't win through mid, right?
KT's are very suspicious.
That's where CFO are their strongest.
Oh god, that'd be so fun.
KT is a very suspicious LCK 3rd seed. But
I mean, for Keith's chances, I think there is a world. Okay, so let's go over the team. So PSG, I think they're better than. I think PSG are pretty rough. I don't think PSG. Yeah. Team Wales, I think, are better than people think. I think Team Wales are like their team that VKS would be disappointed not to challenge, but this is not like what was the second seed from Vietnam? VKE Vikings. This is not like Vikings from last year, right? Like they're a step above. Like PSG this year are a lot worse than last year, but like Team Wales are like comfortably like they deserve to be here. They played pretty well. So I would that's maybe somebody they should match up against. But if I'm keyed, like the matchups that I want are like either the lower tier. So obviously 100 Thieves would be great.
Yeah.
Obviously,
it'd be so much fun.
Yeah.
But the matchups I think you want are like BLG, like early on in the tournament, right? Where you could definitely take one game. Like BLG are definitely capable of dropping one game to keep.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to drop a best of 3, but like all you need to do is just win one game against BLG, and you've already made your tournament. You've already made a statement. I think that they can maybe take a game off KT. I think that they can depends which G2 show up. That's a problem. Yeah, they could take it Koi and consider the problem. The problem though is Jojo is very, very strong individual laner. And the issue is which Eluria and which Alvaro are going to show up. Like the problem with Eluria and Alvaro is in NEC they're insane, but Alvaro is probably the best support in the league. It's between him and Mickey, and he was really bad at MSI, and that's why Koi was so much worse at MSI versus how they were in Europe. It's because Alvaro just had a shocker of a tournament. If he has another shocker, it's not impossible Trinity can outplay him, but I think it's a lot on Koi needing to slip up. But I think there's a world where Keed can go. I think Keed will be disappointed if they don't at least go 1-3, and I think there's a world they can go 2-3. Is there a world they can go 3-2? God draws every single round.
There is a world, but I think to your point, it would depend on the ping pong balls, if you will, right? Being
it would depend on the
yeah. If you get the BLG round one, so you can steal a high seed win in round one while they're still.
Yeah, but then you're an upper bracket. Though. That's a problem. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, but then you can get like G2 in upper bracket, and you're like, well, we could best of one G2, like, you know. And
maybe.
I'm planning for a 3-0 on this track. I'm not going 3-2.
I would say that this year, I think it's a mark of kind of respect for Keep. That I think if Keep goes 0-3 this year, it's really disappointing. Yeah, it's like really like Pain going 0-3 is, you know, the good job for making it out of the play-ins, right?
Yeah.
But if Keep were to go 0-3, that means they would have lost the game against either PSG or like 100 Thieves or something like this. Yeah. And I think that the fact that we're now a 1-3 region instead of a 0-3 region is a big step up, because all you have to do to stretch from a 1-3 is win one, and you're now a 2-3, and 2-3 is really good, like for a non-Asian team.
Yeah, bro. Like if we want to be like we're everyone but FlyQuest, we're right behind them in terms of like the LTA representation, and potentially everyone in FlyQuest and G2 depends on like what G2 lands in Chengdu, I guess. But like, given what FURIA was able to do, I'd like to think VKS can attempt something similar, at least at this point while they're playing at peak. But again, I think G2 International so heavily depends on who they are rather than who their opponents are.
Can I ask you guys a question? So not just pure power ranking, okay? So not expectations of things. Where do you have Key power ranked at what?
Of the 16 teams.
Let's assume T1 beat IG, RIP. You know, obviously we hope that IG win, but you know.
Yeah. They're above Thieves, PSG. I would put them above Wales. I would, because I'm an optimist, put them.
I mean, it's reasonable, right? Fury was close, right?
Yeah, that's right where the level is. Yeah.
Yeah, and Fnatic is a tricky one for me. I find it really hard to power rank Fnatic because, again, they're kind of, now they seem kind of G2-esque as well. Like any kind of upset roster seems just like, have I decided to be the third best player at the tournament, or have I decided to not at all? But. You're talking like
it is kind of crazy to
kind of optimistic.
No, I think and it is kind of crazy to just like, if you were to because like you're not above it, just pure how good are these teams, not invoking the top esports international hoodoo. Like
you can't rank you're below the top esports. It's not actually
you're below the 7 Eastern teams and then CFO, and you're below FlyQuest, so that gets you down to
9th
10th
or 10th
already, or 9th.
I think it's 9th, and then G2. I'd put G2 above.
Yeah, and now you're 10th. They seem to have rediscovered the sauce.
But I mean, the reason I asked this question though is because I think it would be irresponsible not to put them somewhere in the 10 to 14 range, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree.
For Brazil, that's good.
That's
right.
Great.
Like you said, we were just happy to be there last year, right? That was like,
But the only time Brazil hasn't been like power ranked 16th is the one year like INTZ, like we were power ranked 15th. Yeah. And then lost 0 to 8 HQ who were power ranked. Because we were 15th to what was that Russian team called? It was called
it wasn't Unicorns of Love, was it? Or
it wasn't Unicorns, it was gosh, you can tell I'm going senile. I'm almost 40 now. I can't even remember anymore.
If you're referring to 2016,
it was I can even see their roster in front of me. I can see their Poppy and Ivia and Graves top lane, Poppy jungle, Olivia mid.
Some real curse stuff.
2016 was Albus Nox.
Albus Nox, that's what it was. Like hard random. Okay, fine. I names just fade out of your mind, after like 10 years. But like I think INTZ that year were like 14th. I think most people had them 14th or 15th. Albus Nox was 16th, and then like HQ and INTZ were 14, 15, right? So like, and then I think most other years, Brazilian teams have been power ranked below that, right? Because it's been planes. So the fact we are saying that the lowest it's responsible to power rank Keyed is as 14th, because higher than 100 Thieves, higher than PSG. is like a massive step up, and I would put them. I'd put them 13th.
Yeah,
13th or 12th. 13th or 12th. I think Secret Wales. I think they have potential to surprise, but we're talking pure, not matchups. We're talking pure power rankings.
Yeah,
I think LTA 2 should be above LCP 2, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're at the point now where a 0-3 is like actually don't blame the players, but a 0-3 would be actually disappointing. Whereas like I don't think 0-3 in past years deserves to be disappointing. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah. I mean, barring you get like a super cursed draw, but like but that's the thing was you always have to put the Swiss asterisk all over this discussion.
Yeah.
But you're right. No, like on the face of it, if you get just like median draws of like teams at your similar level, right, of the 0-1s and the 0-2s and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Right. You I think if you bomb out, that's a disappointment.
That's a good thing about Swiss. You will always end up next to someone who's also bombing out, and like realistically, you know who's most likely for that to be, and like there's a very real world where like even like last year when like Pain met up Gam in that last match, we were like we want to beat Gam, like we feel like we should be able to beat Gam here. So. And that was a very different atmosphere than FURIA and then Cade now have coming into this point. So
it's like it's you go from wanting to win to expecting to win, and I think
it's a dangerous transition to make.
Sometimes. It's a bit of a dangerous one, but it's a good. Like I mean, my hope for VKS is Desamis has an insane tournament. Because Desamis and Trimby, like obviously that's the key for Heat, everyone knows this, right? So I hope the Summits has an insane tournament. I hope that they take a game. I would love a series, right? Like I love a BLG bad day or like a top esports bad day. But I don't think it's going to happen. But give me a game.
That's a scary
like give me a game against BLG or a game against KT Wilson. That, and then you go 1-3. You like win the games you're supposed to. You lose the games you're supposed to. Maybe you even go 2-3. Then I think that's happy. But like they go 1-3, that's actually a really good performance, right? So I think that's, and what I'm hoping for is that Morteus and Desamis are the two that can really really gain a lot from this tournament. I think top lane will be hard. Top lane internationally versus top lane in Brazil
you just get clapped like on your own in lane, and it's like I've not even had a chance to figure out what's happening, and I'm already 0-2, and
I blinked and Bin is 3-0.
But that was the insane thing. It was like Guigo was so good internationally. Like normally top laners really suffer when you go internationally, right?
Oh yeah. No, like what F&B and Bowl were able to do.
I want to see F&B,
like especially Bowl. Because I think I'll echo kind of the sentiment from our broadcast was like eventually the other shoe is going to drop with Bowl. And he's going to go up there and just get his ass handed to him because we've seen it too often, right? Surely this run hot will end. And it didn't. And it was so cool. And because like even with FNB, right? The run hot, like him carrying momentum into playoffs, or like, that was like, okay, it was a surprise because he always kind of falls on his face, but you knew it was there. He had demonstrated enough regular season success where you're like, okay, that's surprising, but not that surprising. And with the greatest respectable, like he to me, the two best stories individually, I think are like him and Tatu of this year. If you're talking about just like what they were able to do relative to expectations. But I thought Ball was going to go up there and just get absolutely doused. But he held his own and had some really good moments as well. So but like you said, internationally, you talk about going against guys like Bin and Zeus. Holy shit.
That's going to be fun.
Oh, God.
We'll see.
But I mean, to be clear, this is a European issue too, right? Like, it's not a Brazilian issue. It's like
we'll put him up against Mirwin.
It's a Korean Jace, It's a Korean Jace for a reason.
We'll put him up against Mirwin, Oscarinin, and Broken Blade, who have been known to completely toss a game in their time. And we'll play the clip of Broken Blade's Warwick versus Gigo, and that'll hype us up, and then we'll be in the right mindset for Boal to clap them out. So
do we want to have the Europe discussion? Because I think you two are more qualified to talk about it than me, and like kind of where we feel about. Because to me, I'll give kind of the much less informed take. Mm-hmm. I feel like G2 maybe they're not back at obviously when I say the peak of their powers, I don't mean 2019 G2. Obviously, I think like what this roster seems to have started to find its ceiling. If I'm a European fan, I'm feeling a lot better about G2 than I did in this split than I did in split 2. That is my opinion. And then it just kind of feels like with K-Corp combusting, Koi and Fnatic felt like the natural 2-3. And I think they will be like fine if unspec. Like I don't expect them to make it out of Swiss. I'll put it that way.
So yeah, I would have hoped that K Corp could have made it back. Though I understand why they didn't. But my main feeling for G2, and I want to know what your feeling is here, Peter, is where do you think the ceiling is for Skumon?
It's high. It's really, really high. Like the thing is that when you look at G2 and you look at the names on G2, you think, oh, it's going to be Captain BB carrying. But actually this year, G2's best players were Hansama and Skumon.
Yeah, I'm so happy that
Hansama, he was just he was just consistent, and like Skumon, the number of times where Skumon is rescuing Caps' ass because he's just running it.
Yeah.
Right? This entire, like, to me, the scary thing for G2 is how poor Caps has been this entire year, right?
Yeah.
Like he by Caps' standards, right?
Yeah.
Caps' standards are like top 5
our
potential. If there is a Westerner in the Hall of Fame, it will be Caps, right? Like that's his standard, and he was a bit rough this year. So to me, Skumon is looking really, really good. I don't think I've ever seen a rookie jungler look this good so quickly. I don't think Yike was this good when he was winning. I think Elyoya, when Elyoya won on the Mad Lions team, I think he was like their number 4 option, no, number 3 option, right?
Yeah.
Because Humanoid, that was the year where Humanoid and Kazi were just like
Humanoid, Armor, Kazi, like you had so many carry threats.
Yeah, exactly, right? So he was good. Like, I don't want to say bad things about Elyoya, but he didn't have to do as much as Skumon had to do to win his title this year. And so I think his ceiling is really, really high. I think that the problem I have with this G2 is sometimes they're a bit formulaic. Like, I think the move from Labrov, from Mickey to Labrov, like Mickey is a type of guy where where Chinese coaches will study his ward placements, his ward patterns, his ward timings, right? Like I've been told by like 2 different current LPL coaches that for Western players, Mickey is the Western player that they watch the most, even more than Caps.
Yeah.
Because he's really creative in things that he does, right? Normally it's the pity, we're having conversation and we're like, do you watch anybody outside LCK and LPL? Yeah. Oh, I guess we watch it, it's not like
every Caps is good, right? Haha.
Yeah, it's like the pity. But actually, like, as a serious thing, they're like, okay, Mickey, this is actually something we can gain from it, right? And G2 I think that they had a little bit of a X factor working in both ways, right? Like, I don't think this G2 would have lost to NRG, in like 2023, right? 2023 NRG. But I don't think that they're forced to play the game of a lot of these. I don't think they have that like creativity outside of Caps versus previous years, right? Where I think that they could be a bit more creative. So they basically have to brute force the teams. The interesting matchup is FlyQuest, because then we'll really see how good Skumon is when he plays against Inspired.
Actually, you talk about a cerebral jungler, right? And the things that take you from kind of good to great. And from FlyQuest in general, they are a smart team, right? And they're not they're not a team that generally shoot themselves.
Yeah, I mean, they deserve, the coaching staff deserve it. Like, New Duck deserves a lot.
Oh my god, yeah.
Right? Like, I worked with Inspired in 2022, 2 years ago. Yeah, 2022.
EG roster,
yeah, the EG roster, right? And he has improved since 2022, like a lot.
Sure.
Like his macro, his jungling was always good, right? Like his jungling on G2 was good, but his like discipline now is better, and like especially how he contests midways. Now the way he contests midways is much better, and I think that's kind of like promoted him up a tier. So G2, I think G2 can make top 8. I don't think that they can make top 4.
No,
because then they're going to have to beat like I think they're going to be ranked 5 to 8, and they're going to have to play an LCK team in quarterfinals. And I think FlyQuest have more chance of beating an LCK team because FlyQuest will pull out the weird shit. Like they're not afraid to pull out the weird shit, whereas G2 haven't been like, except for like Blitzcrank, like, which is kind of meta. Like I don't think
it's meta. It's showing up in a lot more places than I thought it would.
Fearless, that has become a way more normal answer to a game 4, game 5.
But
Senna or something like
but I mean, like, I think FlyQuest are definitely like they'll pull out Emilio or something weird, right? Like or like they'll prioritize Ivan Jungle highly. Like I think the FlyQuest have more chance But I don't know about G2 or FlyQuest yet. The thing I will say about Koi and Fnatic is that their X factor comes from jungle and jungle support. And the problem is that Eluya, by his standards, was not good at MSI, but then he was really, really good in spring and really, really fucking good in summer, right? So, like, I mean, I think that Koi have the potential to go even and fight Asian teams. Jojo's laning is good enough, and Milwin is not stupid enough to take the Jax Renekton into bin. He will take, he won't play the Jax Renekton. He will play something weird, and he'll dare the other guy to like play, because there's a lot of these top laners that come from the West that are just like, yeah, I can play Renekton into Jax. What's the worst thing that can happen? I play all the time in scrims and I always win, and then
and then they very quickly find out just what the worst thing that could happen is.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think Merwin is like. I think Merwin is. I'm not going to say he lacks confidence. He has confidence that he will find a creative solution to the problem, right? So I don't think you're going to see Koi sit there. But the problem with Koi is Alvaro and Eluya were rough at MSI, and they just need to be better at both, right? Like, I don't think they're going to play as badly as they did at MSI, but who knows?
I spent my entire time. I just refuse to have to believe in Fnatic at this point. Like, from playoffs, it felt like so many times they have failed to even hold it together as long as playoffs to like make it into like a decent international position, and they did manage to hold it together this time to get into the third slot. But like, Razork particularly, I find like whenever I look at him, he becomes terrible, and whenever I look away, it's like, and he becomes good again. I'm like, oh, Razork's good again, and then it's no, he's not. No, he's right back in the bin, and like that one feels even more flippy to me, like from the jungle when. If I have a lot of faith in what Upset and Mickey X as a combo should be, and I think Oscar Rinnen as well also feels like a bit of a confidence thing at times, where sometimes he really gets in his own head and just kind of crumbles. And I think Povey's just completely vibing on that roster and just doing whatever, which is good, and all power to him. But do you think Fnatic is so hard to pin down for so long? Like, it's been hard to like believe in Fnatic to achieve anything?
So Fnatic, I think it's going to be hard. But ironically, Fnatic are a team I don't want Keed to play. Like, the problem is that I think Keed are at their best when they are thinking rationally. They're like really level-headed. They just play smartly to their things. And I don't think that there is any way that Trimby, like, you would have to have superhuman monk mental to not be like, and Trimby is the guy who sets the mood on that team, right? Yeah. Like, after what Fnatic did to Trimby, like, fucking hell, man. Like, I mean, it can go both ways, but it can get you really, really motivated and really pumped up. But ironically, I think Keed are at their best when they're not pumped up. I think Keed are at their best when they're just like, play what's in front of you, play the team which is in front of you. So that kind of scares me, the matchup of Fnatic versus Keed. But Fnatic, I don't feel Fnatic are that strong. And I think A-Corp really just really shot themselves in the foot. Yeah. It's like, you instead of you're in a boat on the sea, and instead of taking the water, there's a hole in the boat, and instead of, using your bucket to pour the water over the side, you're like taking the water from the sea into. But this metaphor sounded better in my head.
It probably sounded better in K-Corp said when they were planning how to do it, and yet here we are. Like, so it's I will not be holding hopes for them, but I think. I want to reiterate as well. I'm so happy that Hans Sam is playing well again, as like probably my favorite European player ever. And I don't like watch that much LEC, or I don't follow it nearly as closely. Obviously, I follow CBLOL very closely now for casting it, but generally speaking, I genuinely care about it more than any others at this point. And I was like, even back in the day, I was more of an LCS viewer than an LEC viewer, because I just cared more and enjoyed it more. But Hans Sama was always the exception. It made me even more sad when like that TL roster that was Bwipo, Bjergsen, Hans Sama, Core JJ, and like Santorin or somebody. And I was like, this is a roster built of like at the time, like my favorite players in every role from the globe. And it just, the fact that didn't work just broke my little
fourth place.
Man. Just I think Bwipo Bjergsen was rough. Like the problem is Bjergsen, plays. low risk and Whippo plays like very high risk. So yeah.
It was not like a stylistic match made in heaven, but it was like my like action figures team that I made in my bedroom, and it just didn't work at all. It made me so sad. Anyway, okay. So the other thing to think about here, just kind of the last thing I think we need to touch on, or I guess the second last thing, just to follow up on the end of the VKS expectations, the comments that CL made was, he said in the interview, that they were not delivering fantasy, but they'll try their best, basically, is the paraphrasing. Yeah. And like, just like a brief reaction, I guess, on the kind of we'll try our best guys kind of mentality, because like as we've already kind of we're building expectations for them, and it does feel a little bit like he's like, don't get too excited, don't build too many expectations here. We're not gonna like walk into Swiss and beat like KT in a 3-1 and get out in 3-2. Like, we're not, as you said, delivering on fantasy. So he's trying to cool the conversation a little bit on VKS, which and I guess as someone who has,
I think it's not.
He's had his ambitious prophecies proven correct, but I guess he doesn't want to get in the business of just saying it's always
to be fair. I don't think he's ever had like these prophecies, these Oracle of Delphi moments about internationals. He has made a lot of lofty promises about domestic, right? And he has delivered those for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, I think at the moment, Seal's job is to get Keed to do as well as they possibly can at Worlds. We had this conversation. Like, I think power ranking 10 to 14 is reasonable. I probably have them at 12, 13, probably 12. I power rank them ahead of Fnatic, but I don't think they're going to beat Fnatic in a best of 3, like, because of the background. But what I would say is that Seal knows that Keed play better when they don't get carried away, when they don't get carried away by the moment, when they, trust their fundamentals. They have people with good fundamentals on that team, and this is the best way to do it, right? It's not like, don't play just focus on your next game. Don't focus on the end result. Just purely focus on your next game and focus on one game at a time. And I think that if I was in his position, that is what I would be doing. Now, obviously, fans are going to go and cheer and like be like, oh, you should expect the best. But there are some teams which thrive on expectations and pressure, right? Like, again, we've talked about Jojo Pion a lot, so I'm going to mention Jojo Pion is the type of guy who, he will post a stupid tweet before your game because that's what gives him the energy, right? And, I'm sure if Seal was coaching Jojo, he would probably not be making a statement like this. He would be making a different type of statement, right? Yeah. But because of the people that he's coaching, I think he has to choose the correct temperature. And I think from the outside, he's chosen the right temperature for this team, I think is the way to put it.
Yeah. So the last question, I guess, is who's winning Worlds? Are we T1 3-peating? Is Genji gonna finally? I mean, it's kind of a golden road because they MSI'd, but I think they didn't win like the first stand, right? So
it's the golden cul-de-sac.
It would have been golden road last year, like So is anyone else gonna challenge, or who's taking it away?
I think Peanut gets the storybook ending and rides off into the sunset.
Rides off into the military on the back of a... Is that Hanwha?
I like that. I like that call, actually. Like, I feel it's responsible for me to predict Gen G, but like, I just...
Like, they are the best team in the world. I don't think there's much debate about that, right? But like, shit happens.
I mean, it happens to Gen G a lot.
And shit seems to happen to Gen G at Worlds at a disproportionate rate.
Yeah, I got into the habit of predicting Gen G in my pick'ems like 4 years ago, because even 4 years ago it seemed like it was the right choice, and it just never, for one reason or another, it never seemed to happen.
It probably was. In the moment, it was probably the right choice.
I can't stop predicting them now, because as soon as I stop, they will win. So, I have to
So, I think that there's a couple of things. Firstly, Worlds is in China this year.
Yeah.
Which home crowd advantage will matter a lot, because it will put more pressure on, when the home crowd is against you and you have those little nagging doubts, it builds up. It really, 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 really builds up in a not very productive way. Am I going to go as far as predicting BLG?
That seems that would be an ambitious one. I mean, I think Bin's the kind of guy who gets fired up by the home crowd as well, but
yeah, my brain is telling me Gen G, but my heart's telling me I can't predict Gen G. Like, there's just no way. It's just not going to happen. I like HLE. I'm going to say HLE or BLG. You said HLE. I'll say BLG. I'll say BLG because you said HLE.
Right,
I say BLG. They're going to do the jungle swap. I hope that Base 1 starts every single best of 5 when you get into top 8, and it's not Shadow game 1, and I have to cheer for Base 1 game 5. Give me Base 1 game 1. So I'll go for BLG. And the reason I'm going BLG is because I think that their players are the types of players that will benefit from a home crowd like a lot. So
and with that, would we actually? There still has never been a Chinese mid laner to win Worlds, right? There's been a Chinese top laner. Gimgoon broke that curse in 2020.
No, Gimgoon was Korean.
Is he?
I'm pretty sure.
Really? Wait, then who am I thinking of?
On FPS?
But either way, but the mid lane thing is right?
I feel like we're forgetting somebody, but maybe.
Nope, Gimgoon is Gimgoon is Korean. My fault.
Yeah, I mean, I can see Knight winning Worlds. I mean, I hate cheering for Knight, man. I really hate cheering for Knight because of the after game stuff. But yeah, okay, fine. BLG, Shadow. You know, redeem your teammates.
Yeah.
But joking aside, HLE, I think HLE is a really good shout out.
Yeah,
I think HLE is a really good shout.
I love Zeka, man. Zeka's one of my favorite.
He's so sick.
Players. He's so
when he's playing his ass off.
Guy.
There are a few more entertaining players to watch. He is a treat to watch when he's smurfing. Oh my gosh!
Exactly when he's on. Unfortunately, I have to inform everybody that it is a T1 3-peat. I'm sorry to break the news, but it's T1. I'm afraid. Sorry to leak the script, but they're gonna come from play-ins, and they're gonna win all the way through, and they're gonna be Worlds T1, and they're gonna be so confident that the home crowd you can't crack Faker with the home crowd, bro, and it's just, and Doran's gonna walk away with the world title, and everyone's gonna clap.
Oh, yes.
And he will then throw double middle fingers up at the camera and walk out the door and never be seen again.
Walk over to the sunset.
And he will have earned it.
And he will have earned it, and I will be clapping him out the door. So that's my take. And that would be the first 3-peat. T1 is not 3-peated yet. They've done two doubles, but no 3s. And that's a legacy that it starts becoming really hard to break because Faker's only 29. So, yeah.
And,
okay.
And Flandre won Worlds as a Chinese top laner. That's what
yes.
2021. But still,
from EDG.
No, since 2013, since time actually started being kept track of in 2013.
Yeah.
A Korean mid laner has won Worlds every single year.
Yeah.
And that is remarkable.
Yeah. Okay. With that, let's wrap it up. We're just over a couple hours. That's been more than what I could have hoped for. Thank you so much, Peter, for coming on and getting so in-depth about the region, about Worlds. Thank you, 404, as always. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Of course, you can still, we will still be back here ready to go next year as well. We'll see what we can do about any kind of Worlds watch party or anything like that. We'll post it on socials if we're going to get that going. But in the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter, on Blue Sky. I believe we are still LTA South for the time being. It will probably become CBLOL English again at some point.
We'll get that switched over.
And you can join.
Annoying that we went through the trouble of switching it over just to switching it back, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. And you can join our community Discord if you wish, where you can chat to us, submit questions for the podcast, do all this fun stuff. So until then, we might not talk to you again until next year. But until then, enjoy Worlds, and we will see you back in 2026 for the return of the CBLOL. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
I'm good.